My fellow Madridistas, this video, I want to really address something very important. I know a lot of us want either Mbappé gone or you want Vinicius gone, and then now there's a new group that wants Valverde gone. But there are very, very serious issues with Real Madrid that a lot of us are aware of, but we might have forgotten. And this is a refresher for us to see what exactly the team needs and what we should do about the situation that we currently are in. Now, I have made several predictions about a lot of things that have been happening in the club, and I want to be very rational and unbiased with regards to the solutions that the club can offer to us. Now, as a fan, and if as a fan also like me, we are going to be very emotional about, we want this club to win. We really want us to go back to winning ways. We want not to be the bottom of the joke, to be bashed at in El Clasico and to be losing silly matches. Nobody wants that. And I really like to start with the first issue that we have, which I think is the biggest problem. Because before now, the biggest problem Real Madrid had was that we had not reinforced the back line. We had that as a very serious problem. And a lot of people, even today, keep saying that that is Real Madrid's biggest problem, but it's not. The board is doing fine. The president is not doing horribly. When he bought a lot of players, he didn't buy them just whimsically. I know that a lot of people are going to say, no, he did that. We just duplicated a lot of positions. It's true. We did duplicate skill sets in the team, but it seemed like the skill sets could work. And with the way that they were purchased, it seemed that it was going to be the case. But then when you start watching them develop, you can then make a decision based on what you are seeing. Now, where I'm going to point at is something that is very clear. If we remember, let's rewind and go back into the past when we made our first young midfielding signing, which was Camavinga. And he came into the club and he had a lot of potential. And when we looked at him, we were like, this boy could be anything. He could be like Luka, he could be like Cruz, because he was good with long passes. He could really spread the ball around with short passes. He could dribble. He had technical dribbling to hold on to the ball and try to be press resistant. But then as he began to age, now we see him more clearly. So, but when he was purchased then, he had a lot of potential and the club didn't really understand what he could be. But we did know he was playing in the defensive midfield position. So after that, we went to make another signing. Casemiro was leaving and Camavinga hadn't stepped up to become a very reliable defensive midfielder. He was still a midfielder, but in terms of reliable defensive midfielder, that wasn't really what he was. But he had, again, we were hoping a lot of potential. And so we stepped out and bought Tchouaméni. And Tchouaméni seemed to offer higher stability in terms of the defensive midfielding role. And in theory, he was going to have Camavinga on one side and then, Valverde on the other. And, what had started becoming clearer as time went by is that the dreams we had for a lot of these players have not been the case. They've developed properly. They are not developing wrongly. They are developing properly and they're developing into what they are really supposed to be. And the problem is that we don't want to see them for what they really are. So after we've had two defensive midfielders already in the club, but that is recently purchased, we actually had one more, but I'm not going to call him that immediately. I'm just going to go on before we get to see him more clearly. We then step out immediately after the purchase of Tchouaméni to buy another defensive midfielder. And people are going to argue about this. So we go out and we buy Jude. And in theory, it's supposed to work. You have Camavinga, who has a lot of potential to be like Luka, and then you have Tchouaméni, who will hold the fort, and then you have Jude on the other side, who is, has more flair. He can go forward. He's, has very good shot accuracy, good in the air, physical. He can really control the midfield, and the three of them, in theory, can do something. But then, in practical, what turned out to be the case is that there were three defensive midfielders. At best, look, Jude is a box-to-box. At best. But what a box-to-box midfielder is a defensive midfielder who goes forward and can add something to attack. He's not a creative midfielder. He's a defensive midfielder. Tchouaméni is a defensive midfielder, and Camavinga is a defensive midfielder. And I want to say this emphatically. And this is for anybody who loves Jude or Camavinga or Tchouaméni so much that they disagree with this. I want you to go and check our La Liga matches this season and see how many chances, whenever these three players feature, how many chances they create, and compare that to a mediocre creative midfielder from any other La Liga club, so that it can be clear. It is not a slander on these players. They are wonderful defensive midfielders, but we keep on wanting them to be creative midfielders. But that's not the case. And that is the reason that Jude has looked like unbelievable gold. You know, because he has a little bit of creative flair, but it's not enough. And then Arda Güler currently in the club is like the son of God, because he's the first creative midfielder we have. It's just the case. Güler looks like that because he's the first one who is a real creative midfielder that we have. We don't have another creative midfielder. So the team is really suffering very seriously because we are a reactive team. We are not a proactive team. We don't know how to create chances, and we don't know how to attack as a form of defense. And other smaller teams can do that to us. A mediocre La Liga team will come to Madrid and be like, attack is the best form of defense, and they press us. And you know, the midfielders are more likely to do what they are good at doing, which is defending, and then we sit so deep and we create so much space for them to creep into, and we keep on seeing goals after goals. Meanwhile, if we had addressed this and got more creative midfielders, we could have been using that same method to really counterbalance. So we just have one creative midfielder, and that's a very serious problem. But the worst part of this whole thing is that a lot of the fan base is attached to one or two of these defensive midfielders, so much so that they have refused to see them for what they really are, which is defensive midfielders, and know that they cannot all play. They cannot all play. If we are being honest, we just need one defensive midfielder. We already have 4 defenders. We just need one defensive midfielder. But in the current Real Madrid squad, we have 6 defensive midfielders and 1 creative midfielder. Thiago Pita is a defensive midfielder, and Valverde is a defensive midfielder. These are not creative midfielders. Some people are going to argue, no, they have some flair and they can do that. They can, but that's not what a creative midfielder is. A creative midfielder, I mean, like I said, again, you can check how many chances do they end up creating. So we have 6 defensive midfielders because we have Ceballos, we have Pita, we have Valverde, Camavinga, Tchouaméni, and then Jude. So we really need to fix that. And there's nothing we can currently do because these players are professional. A lot of them are wonderful. They are good. They've bled for this club. They've done a lot. But then again, if we are going to compete with the best teams in the world, we don't need 2 playing at the same time. If we want to really press them, if we really want to create as much chances in order to outscore them, we will need another creative midfielder. And if we're going to play 2 creative midfielders, we cannot play 2 defensive midfielders. We can only feature 1 in the end. And I'm saying this because I want to be very, very plain that when Nico Paz comes back, not because he's better than everybody else, I'm saying this so that when it starts to happen, that you begin to see Madrid is far much more competitive with Nico Paz and Arda Güler playing at the same time, it will not be something that is weird. And I really like it to be that it's something that you can even write down and then check me on it later on. It's just the fact. We're going to be far much more competitive having 2 creative midfielders than having 1 and then 2 defensive midfielders. But our love and our loyalty to some of these players can blind us and make it difficult for us to admit that we only need to feature 1 defensive midfielder when we are playing against the best. It really is a fact. We can see this, for instance, like with PSG, who is, you know, as you can see how they've succeeded the past 2 seasons. They just need 1. When we also were so dominant in Europe, what was the case? We needed 1. 4-3-3 has turned out to be the most stable formation that you can field in terms of racking up success, especially in Europe, because you can use 3 to go up against 4. If you have the correct set of midfielders, you can actually use 3 to go up against 4 midfielders, and you will not be overloaded in the midfield and lose out much. And the funny thing is that a lot of people who are going to feature 2 double pivot or any other funny formation like maybe 4-4-2, you can be able to create an overload in the middle with that 3. So the not to be too technical, I'm just trying to make this very straightforward. 4-3-3 is a very balanced formation. I'm not necessarily even saying that we need to play, but I'm just pointing out the fact that one defensive midfielder and having two creative midfielders is going to allow you to be able to press higher, create more chances, and use attack as a form of defense so that you don't lose space to the other team, giving them more opportunity to attack you and therefore more chances to score more goals and win the match. It's just, in the very simple sense of it. There's much more to speak about it if we go into it tactically. But that's the sense of it. So we really need to fix this high amount of defensive midfielder problem that we have. And some people will say, why not turn them? Why not change them from defensive midfield to creative midfield? I really wish it was that easy. But talent and skill sets are just the way that they are. The ones we have are defensive midfielders. And if we remember when we started coming to terms with accepting the fact that Rodrigo is not going to be a permanent starter for Real Madrid because we have Vinicius there, and when Rodrigo even features on the wing, yes, he plays well and he has carried the team sometimes, but he's not someone who you can say is going to deliver what Vinicius is delivering. We had to come to terms with that, and we had to accept it. And a lot of the Rodrigo fans, including myself, had to say, okay, yeah, let's let this go. It's the same thing that's really going to have to happen, that a lot of the fans are going to have to tell themselves the truth and let it go. The player you love so much in the midfield most likely is not going to be a starter anymore. Please do not create stories. Do not come out every single match we play looking for what to say bad about the creative midfielders who start. It's, again, criticize them when it's necessary, when you find fault. But we can see with what has been happening this season that people are creating agendas that don't exist, just in a desperate attempt to make sure that the player that they love is starting, whether it is to the detriment of Madrid. And that's a very horrible thing to do. We need to really stop that and go ahead. And so that's the number one issue to fix. Then the next will be with regards to the defense. That's quite obvious. We don't have a senior center back. No slander to Rüdiger. He has aged, and he has reached that age at which Real Madrid let center backs go. I mean, we had Sergio Ramos as the captain for how long, and we still let him go, I think, at the age of 34. So Rüdiger will be turning 34 this year, and you can see he's slowed down. He really, in the prime of his career, was not good at playing as in a two-man center-back system. That really wasn't what he was good at. He was always best with three because he used to have a concentration problem, and it still happens to him even now. And those spaces that he leaves are always being attacked. Every single team that is playing Real Madrid and sees Rüdiger, in the starting lineup, the manager is going to be like, yes, we'll see space. We'll see space. That doesn't mean Rüdiger is bad. It's just that it's easy to tell. He's going to give you space. He's good at man marking, but he's not good at reading space. It's the reason he's so effective against someone like Haaland or other very, very simplistic strikers who don't seem to understand how to build up and how to attack space and how to be subtle. But once you meet a team that is the game plan, they will exploit the spaces that he leaves. We reinforced with Hausen, and I like his addition to the team as a ball playing center back. There are a lot of times that I've always been like we would have had a better performance if he was there, but he's young and he's still getting injured, and some of these matches he cannot play. So as much as he's wonderful, he still needs time to get into his prime. So we really need a senior center back who is going to be able to coach him, and especially Raul Asensio. Raul Asensio is not at the quality of Real Madrid standard as it is. He is a lovely prospect for the future, but he shouldn't be featuring in very, very important matches as at now. Again, I'm not throwing shades on any of the players. I do not think that they are nonsense. I'm just saying that as of now, we need something else more stable for the quality as of now. So we really need a senior center back, and that's about it for the defense. We can get another CB to make sure that we don't run out of options. If we get another senior center back, it will make it hard for all the other center backs to play. So it will be better if we got one senior center back and one younger center back who is willing to go through rotation. That's the thing I feel like we will need. And let me be very, very clear. The one senior center back I'm talking about, I'm not talking about anybody else in the world except Nico Schlotterbeck. I've been saying this since last year. I keep saying it. I'm very, very upfront. I'm very happy that Real Madrid has set eyes on him and that they are going to go for him. I've actually been saying it for 2 years now that Nico Schlotterbeck is the one who Real Madrid should go for. So, but I'm happy that we are most likely going to make that signing. We are going to, have more stability there. Then for the striking, let's be quite clear with something. Many people want Mbappé to play the wing and for Vinicius to be sold, or for Mbappé to be sold and let Vinicius play that wing. One thing is very, very clear. Kylian Mbappé is not a center forward or a striker. He will become it at the ending of his career. But as long as he can sprint and is one of the fastest players in the world, he will not be an effective center forward. And a lot of people are going to be like, here comes the yappers who talk nonsense. Kylian Mbappé has scored 40-something goals in 40-something matches. Tell me what more a striker needs. Let me explain. When France won the World Cup in 2018, they had a center forward, Giroud, who throughout the tournament did not register a single shot on target. Of course, everybody's going to be like, that's a disaster. And I can say this confidently. If France fielded someone else, they most likely would not win that tournament. And everybody who knows how much work Giroud put into making sure that France was balanced will understand just how important he was to that campaign. The fact that Kylian Mbappé was running defenders riot, scoring goals, Griezmann was having the time of his life was because Giroud was doing a lot of work as the center forward, occupying the center backs, creating spaces with his runs, creating as much area challenges and a lot of these things. We understand that with football, it's not just about goals, being a center forward. You are going to have to be the person who links up play, holds up play, occupies the center back, creates spaces with runs. None of these things I have mentioned now has to do with scoring goals. But that's the description of the center forward. And these things that I have mentioned now, Kylian does none of them. He doesn't hold up play. He is not a link-up point. He's not a person who occupies the center backs. He doesn't create spaces with his runs. All he does is score goals. And that's not just what the center forward does. You remember that Luis Enrique was explaining seriously to Kylian that it is more than scoring goals. Being a good center forward is more than scoring goals because it's going to be difficult for you to be a clinical center forward. If you cannot do all these things, then at least be clinical in the sense of now the team is not going to expand energy in terms of attack on you. For instance, I'll give you a very, very clear example. Harry Kane now, and then Karim Benzema when he won the Ballon d'Or. Two wonderful examples of clinical strikers. You don't expand energy trying to feed Kane. You will hear the wingers say this, that we are not feeding Kane. We play with him. So we are not expanding resource in the attack, that is energy in the attack, trying to feed Kane to score. Rather, the attack goes in many directions. There is so much chaos when they go there because he's creating spaces, he's linking up, he's doing a lot of things. Or if he's very quiet, the moment you give him a quarter of a chance, not even half a chance, he'd put it in the net. And that devastation that he causes to the center backs, that they are like, he doesn't even need a clear chance and he will punish you, makes them so scared that they don't leave the defense to go and join the attack. Because you know that once the ball reaches this striker, he doesn't need it clean. He will punish you. So that aura alone makes them so scared that a lot of the defenders or the defensive midfielders are afraid of going forward because that's how good he is. That's what a clinical striker is. And you can see that when we won the Champions League in that 2022, that was how devastating Karim Benzema was. And every single time that everyone felt like, every team that played against us felt like we have a chance, we will go forward, he'd punish them immediately. He didn't take clean chances. He'd take a quarter of a chance or half a chance, he'd put it in the net and tell you, make this mistake again. I will punish you freely. And so Madrid didn't spend so much energy in the attack. Whenever we came forward, and there are so many instances of it that the team would have created 4 shots on target. Madrid's first shot on target is a goal. The second one is a goal. And by the time your team, you'll be like, The team before us that played Madrid suffered this. They had 6 shots on target. Madrid's first was a goal. The second was a goal. And it has reached your turn. This has happened to 3 teams before you. You become afraid. You are playing a clinical striker. If you are not clinical, which is very, very difficult to achieve, then you need to support your team with other things. And Kylian doesn't have these things. And so it is the biggest problem that we, the fans, or the manager and the board will see a winger who has not demonstrated any of the characteristics of a center forward or a striker and start demanding them from him when he's like, has there ever been a time in my career when you saw these things from me? Why do you want them now? So very clearly, he cannot play center forward. We need a real center forward, and we need Kylian to play the wing. Now, if I'm being frank, the best thing would be for Kylian to play the right wing. I know he hates it, but when Kylian Mbappé did win the World Cup, he played there. Arguments of, oh, in the last World Cup, he went to the finals, he didn't win it. He scored the hat-trick in the finals. There were a lot of things that happened in the finals. Let's just be frank. Kylian Mbappé will be best playing right wing and then swapping with Vinicius during the match. Let there be freedom. Let there be freedom. When we bought, the reason why I would say that is that Vinicius is the oldest striker in the project and deserves that seniority respect. When we bought Kylian Mbappé, we signed him telling him very clearly that he will not displace the winger in Real Madrid, which is Vinicius. He will not do that. So he came in knowing that he's not going to displace Vinicius. It will be silly of him if that ever happens, and if he's ever told anyone in his circle that he wants to displace Vinicius, because that will be problematic. The club didn't sign you for that. Play another wing. And then it's better that you can speak with the manager and say, can you help us with a little bit more rotation so that he can come over to mine and I can go over to his during the match, and then we can try and see how we work things out. That will be the best thing that can happen with Real Madrid's attack. Then we get a proper center forward. We already have Rodrigo. I've said this since he is a center forward because when I saw him, the very first time I laid eyes on Rodrigo in a Real Madrid shirt, the very first match he played, I'm trying to remember his debut, I was like, he's not a winger. I saw him and I told my friend, I was like, that's a center forward. That's not a winger. And that is the exact reason he's gotten an ACL. His body can't keep up with what he wants to do playing the wing. And the fact that he has gotten an ACL now means he's going to lose the speed that he didn't even necessarily have. And he has to slow down and play a more central position. So exactly as it's supposed to be, he's supposed to play in the center forward, but he's currently unavailable. We have Gonzalo, he's a wonderful center forward, but he's still too young and he needs time to develop. So we can feature Endrick there along with Gonzalo and try to see what we can work out while, things go on. But for the attack, we just need Kylian and Vinicius playing the wings. These two of them playing as a center forward thing is happening because we are trying to play 4 midfielders. We know that Güler is the creative one and that it is pointless playing a midfield without him. But then we don't want to offend Valverde because he is the oldest in the midfield in the project. And then we need Jude because he's the most expensive one and the one with the highest prospect among them. But then Tchouaméni is the most professional and the most level-headed. And so the solution is to play 4 of them. You can see exactly why. And then all of a sudden it seems to be an obvious solution. Since Vinicius and Mbappé are also struggling about the wings, why not just play the 2 of them and tell them, do you? We've done that. It's not working. So let's just call a spade a spade. Güler has to play, Paz has to play, 1 defensive midfielder. The remaining defensive midfielders have to shuffle their way in. My choice of defensive midfielder is Jude, and his backup, Tchouaméni. But out of all of them in the midfield, I like Camavinga the most. You can check my comments, but I'm not going to be deluded. And I would ask you people to be the same thing too. Be very unbiased with regards to who it is you think will be able to deliver for Real Madrid. Then we have our 2 wingers and our center forward. We have a much more balanced formation that we can really use to challenge. And I believe this will give us something next season. So if you like this type of content, please do subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. It really helps us put out more videos like this. And we normally put out videos like this every week. So if you want to really continue to see more videos like this, please do subscribe. So we'll be seeing you in the next one.